Today we're going to start planting some of our plants that cannot handle frost, and that's going to involve some of the herbs, especially basil, which is very intolerant of cold weather or frost. So you have to wait till the forecast is going to be frost free before you plant those. That goes as well with your peppers and your tomatoes, as well as all the different varieties of melons and cucumbers and watermelon, all those items. One, even a half decent frost, and you have to replace them all. So don't be in a hurry to plant them in the garden. We've had frost free for the last week or two now, and the forecast looks good. We're going to start with basil. This is a new variety of basil that's on the market called pesto, and it is more intolerant of bolting, meaning that some of the plants, they'll get a certain size or a certain age, or they might get a little bit dry and then they go to flower instead of the leaves. It's the leaves that you want. So this variety is going to stay in leaf form and not go to seed as quickly. And that's why we're going to try this one this year. It's a new variety that's on the market. So I've got one that's in a 5-inch pot here, well established. And we're going to put it in with our hardy herbs that we planted about 2-3 weeks ago. So we're going to dig a hole, and most of the most of the vegetables that we plant, we like to have soil level that was in the pot, soil level equal to the level in your garden. All right, so we don't want to plant them deep. But there's one plant that we're going to talk about that there's an exception to that rule, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So basically, you just set the hole. I'm going to fill back in with the nice soil. What I'm doing for the basil is I'm going to give it about 18-inch spread. So that should keep it from getting into the other plants, the rosemary, the parsley, and the chives. And then next to that, we're going to plant eggplant. And I've got 2 different varieties. Last year I grew the miniature ones, very small eggplants, and you get a lot of eggplants off the plant. But they're quite small, so we just pick them and actually put them in the barbecue with our other vegetables. You don't even have to chop them up. This variety is called Nadia. It's a little bit longer, elongated one, and that's a new one for me this year, so we're going to grow that one as well. Every year I like to try a few new varieties because some people have really good luck with one variety in their garden, depending on what type of soils or what kind of weather they get. Other people have good luck with a different variety again that others can't grow. So always try 1 or 2 or 3 new things every year. So this one here too, it's not going to take much room, about 18 inches wide, and it's going to get about 2 feet tall. So plant it in the middle of the garden. Again, soil level equal to the garden, and we'll backfill. And then about 18 inches over again, we're going to get the next one. I always turn the pot upside down and just give it a good tap. Nice root on these, ready to go. Remember, when you're doing your transplants, when you finish all your transplants, make sure you thoroughly water them in. That settles the soil nicely around the roots so you don't have any air pockets, and allows the moisture in that area to be, the roots will sense that moisture and they'll grow out from the pot very quickly. If the ground stays dry around the pot, it'll just sit in the little root ball and it won't spread out. There's probably 30 or 40 different varieties of tomatoes that are regularly available on the market. And everybody has their favorite as far as size or flavor. Some of the varieties are low acid as well. When you're picking tomatoes and you really don't have a favorite, I suggest that you carefully look at the variety of tomato that you buy. Many tomatoes are susceptible to different diseases, blights or a wilt disease, susceptible to nematodes. So when you buy your plants, there are a lot of varieties of tomatoes on the market that are resistant to a lot of diseases and viruses, and they usually will have a small marking on the tag with a V for verticillium or a F for fusarium blight. So if you've had trouble in the past growing tomatoes that they kind of die out on you halfway through the season, instead of finish nicely, start buying varieties that are resistant to disease. And there's lots of them available on the market as well. Now, we talked about planting the root ball level with the soil. Tomato is one of the few exceptions. If you buy a fairly large tomato, you'll notice that even on the stem, you're going to start to have little roots coming out. And I like to plant them a little deeper, so I usually take the first few leaves off the bottom. So that's given me about 3 inches of extra stem, and I'm going to plant it right up to these first few leaves. That helps the plant more stable in the ground, and out of this stem, it's going to put all new roots as well as that root ball here into the new ground. So you can see I'm going to drop that way down in the hole, right pretty much up to the first set of leaves, and put my tag in for the variety. This one here is called Glamour. It's not a disease resistant one, but it's a nice medium sized tomato. And I always plant 2 or 3 different varieties of tomatoes, because one year one variety will do better. I have to take the leaves off the bottom, so right here. Some years one variety will do very well, and the next year it doesn't, and another one seems to thrive. So it's always wise to plant a couple different varieties. The other thing that's very important with tomatoes is that you do not plant tomatoes in the same spot in your garden year after year, because if there is disease, it stays in the soil, and it usually takes 2 or 3 years before that completely disappears again. So find a different area of the garden or a different flower bed and put your tomatoes in different places every year. And that's a good idea for all your vegetables. Never plant the same thing over and over and over the same spot. Asking for trouble. All right, so go around the other side here. You'll notice that I'm planting about a foot apart or a foot off the edge of the garden. That's going to give them a fair bit of room to grow. When you buy tomato cages, you can buy thin steel cages, or you can buy the heavier duty ones. These are the heavier duty ones, and I find that they're more expensive, but they last a lot more. You get a lot more years out of them, and when you get a big windy day, they're much more sturdy. So right over the center of the plant, and I like to wiggle them into the ground almost to that, till the ring is almost at ground level, and that should support your tomato for the entire season.